Tanks have been a major focus of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and are seen as a key for either Russia or Ukraine to take territory on the battlefield. Russia's tank design is the product of lessons learned in World War II, and as a result, the vehicles tend to be smaller and lighter than Western tanks, as well as lowered to the ground, which makes them harder to hit. The only exception seems to be the T-14 Armata. It's a radical departure from previous designs. One of the most significant differences is the unmanned turret, which houses the primary weapon and an autoloader. The three-person crew is situated in an armored capsule at the front of the hull, separate from the turret. This design choice increases crew survivability. However, these tanks have not been involved in any direct attack missions thus far. In this video, we listed the top 5 best Russian tanks lost in Ukraine so far. Enjoy! Number 5 is the T-80 UE-1. The T-80 UE-1 was accepted into service in 2005. These tanks were created by combining the turrets of the T-80 UD tanks, which were withdrawn from service in Russia in 1995, and the hulls of the T-80 BV tanks, which were upgraded to the T-80U standard. The reason why the Russians went into so much trouble were problems with maintenance of the produced only in Ukraine 1,000 horsepower diesel engines used in the T-80 UD tanks. Instead, the T-80 UE-1 is powered by a gas turbine engine developing 1,250 horsepower. In addition, it was equipped with a modernized 1A45-1 fire control system and a police sight with an integrated French-made second-generation thermal imaging camera for the gunner. This allows to observe the target from a distance of several kilometers, both during day and nighttime. However, the problem with this tank, as well as many other Russian vehicles, with only a few exceptions, is the lack of a fully stabilized independent thermal viewer for the commander. Instead, the commander of the T-80 UE-1 tank is equipped with the PNK-4S sight, which gives him a several times worse view range. Despite the commander having an overview of what the gunner sees in his sight, he cannot conduct effective observation separately, which makes spotting a possible threat very difficult. Needless to say, in 2005 in Western tanks, having a commander's independent thermal viewer was a standard. On the plus side, compared to the T-72 or many older variants of the T-80, where the machine gun installed on the commander's hatch can only be operated when the commander opens the hatch and exposes himself to a possible threat. In the T-80 UE-1, which uses the T-80 UD's turret, the machine gun is installed in the commander's observation cupola and can be remotely controlled from inside the tank. Additional changes compared to the older variant of the T-80 are a modified autoloader and the replacement of the main armament from the 125mm 2A46 M1 smoothbore gun with the newer 2A46 M4. This gun can fire the latest Russian anti-tank munition, as well as the 9M119M anti-tank guided missiles with a range of 5 kilometers and penetration of about 900mm of rolled homogeneous armor. Before the war, the Russians had about 30 T-80 UE-1 tanks. So far, they have lost 5 of them, of which only 1 has been destroyed and the rest captured by the Ukrainians. It's difficult to determine in what condition were the captured tanks, but at least one of them was brought back to service in the Ukrainian army. Number 4 is the T-90A. The first T-90 tanks in the original variant entered service with the Russian Armed Forces in 1992. It was based on the T-72B model 1989. It was equipped with the Stora-1 electro-optical jamming system and a modified fire control system from the T-80U, namely the 1A45T. Its next variant, the T-90A, was accepted into service in 2005. The modernization included, among others, equipping the tank with new tracks, a 160 horsepower more powerful engine, a new welded turret providing much better protection, and since 2006, a new ESA gunner sight equipped with an integrated French thermal imaging camera. However, the armor of the T-90 and T-90A is not flawless, as the Contact 5 ERA blocks are mounted in a way that doesn't completely cover the entire front of the vehicle. In addition, behind the Stora-1 dazzles, which we'll discuss in a moment, there are no reactive armor blocks at all. The Stora-1 electro-optical jamming system, which dazzlers are the main feature of the first two variants of the T-90 tank, is designed to disrupt the enemy's laser rangefinders, anti-tank guided missiles, and laser designators. However, currently the system is not effective against newer generations of this type of weapon, such as Spike, Javelin, or Brimstone. Interestingly, in the video published in 2016, the T-90 equipped with the Stora-1 jamming system was able to withstand an attack carried out with the help of the American BGM-71E TOW-2A anti-tank guided missile. However, in Ukraine, these tanks are less fortunate, as the Russians have already lost 35 T-90As, one of which ended up in the United States for evaluation. Interestingly, they also lost 7 T-90S tanks, which are the export variant, and are not officially in Russian service. The T-90S is used by, among others, India and Iraq. The likely scenario is that Russia has bought, or simply appropriated several of them, while they are being refurbished in that country. Number 3 is the T-72B3M. The T-72B3M is a modernized variant of the T-72B3. Improvements included the replacement of the main armament from the 125mm 2A46 M2 smoothbore gun to the 2A46 M5 of the same caliber. This gun can fire, among others, the latest Russian armor-piercing rounds with a depleted uranium penetrator, or the 9M119M anti-tank guided missiles, which have a maximum range of 5,000 meters. Mobility was improved by equipping the vehicle with a new 1,130 horsepower W92 S2F engine instead of the 1,000 horsepower W92 S2. However, despite this change, the reverse speed is still around 4 km per hour. For comparison, the Leopard 2A4 can move backwards at just over 30 km per hour. The armor was improved by equipping the vehicle with cage armor and huge ERA modules protecting the rear and sides of the turret, as well as the engine compartment. In addition, the tank was equipped with a total of 24 Relikt explosive reactive armor modules and rubber skirts protecting the sides of the vehicle. Before the war, the Russians had about 570 T-72B3Ms. At the time of making this video, they lost 217 of them. Interestingly, they also lost in Ukraine 3 T-72B3s Model 2014, which, unlike the T-72B3s and B3Ms, are equipped with an independent thermal viewer for the commander. So far, the T-72B3's Model 2014 has only been seen during the famous tank biathlon competition held in Russia. Number 2 is the T-80 BVM. The T-80 BVM is an upgraded version of the T-80 BV. It was first publicly revealed in 2017. Compared to the T-80 BV, it has improved armor protection thanks to new Relikt explosive reactive armor kit. It retains a 125mm smoothbore gun. However, it uses a 2A46 M4 gun, which has a longer range and is 15 to 20% more accurate than the 2A46 M1 gun of the T-80 BV. The effective range of fire with APF SDS round is 3,000 meters day and 2,600 meters at night. The T-80 BVM is compatible with newly developed Svinets 1 and Svinets 2 APF SDS rounds with tungsten and depleted uranium penetrators. The tank can also launch 9M119M anti-tank guided missiles in the same manner as ordinary munitions. These missiles extended the effective range of the 125mm gun, which lacks accuracy at longer ranges. These missiles have a range of 5 kilometers and can also engage low-flying helicopters. Similarly to the T-72B3M, the armor has been improved by equipping the vehicle with cage armor and huge ERA modules protecting the rear and sides of the turret, as well as the engine compartment. In addition, a total of 24 Relikt ERA modules and rubber skirts were installed to protect the sides of the vehicle. Interestingly, due to the sanctions, the Russians started the production of a less advanced version of this tank, namely the T-80 BVM Model 2022. Despite improving the armor by installing more ERA blocks, they were forced to remove the Cessna U gunner sight equipped with an integrated French thermal imaging camera. At the time of making this video, the Russians lost at least 73 T-80 BVM tanks, 32 of which were captured by the Ukrainians. Additionally, they lost at least one T-80 BVM Model 2022. Number 1 is the T-90M. The first T-90M was delivered in the spring of 2020, and they are currently the latest version of the T-90 tank in service with the Russian Armed Forces. The T-90M is created both by rebuilding older versions and by newly built machines. The scope of modernization is about increasing firepower, improving armor and mobility. The main armament is a 125mm 2A46 M5 smoothbore gun, which allows for usage of newly developed Svinets 1 and Svinets 2 APF-SDS rounds with tungsten and depleted uranium penetrators, as well as 9M119M Reflex anti-tank guided missiles. But the biggest advantage of the T-90M over other tanks used by Russia is that, unlike previous designs, with one small exception that I will mention in a moment, the commander has his own independent panoramic observation site called PKPAN Sokolny Głaz at his disposal. This solution has been a standard for Western tanks for a very long time. In Russia, it is only a standard for the T-90M and the T-14. A small exception, which I mentioned a moment ago, is the usage in Ukraine of a few T-72B3 Model 2014. They were previously seen only during the famous tank biathlon competition held in Russia. Until now, they have lost 16 tanks, including 2 captured by the Ukrainians. However, despite it, Russia still has over 100 T-90Ms in its inventory. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also, visit our second channel with military power comparisons. See you next time!